And welcome to Horror Talk Live, episode 17. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night. I am Brian, this is Troy, and we just got done watching that film right now there that we're going to discuss tonight, the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, to give a little backstory, this guy right here is rejoining us. We did the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre a few months back. You could check out that in my live playlist. You could check those out. There's 16 other episodes in there if you care to do so. Um, Now, Troy's been kind of going on a little bit of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre journey right now, and we're going to get into this very shortly, the 2003 remake. Good evening, Brandon. I hope you're doing well tonight. And we're glad it's Friday. I'm
Yeah.
sure all you are glad it's Friday. Hello, Kurt.
Hi, Kurt.
Good evening. As I said, we are going to discuss the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for 2003. A little backstory: we did the original 1974 classic Tobe Hooper original 2 months ago, and Troy picked this one. It was his pick, and he wanted to do the remake. And he's been going on a little bit of a deep dive. Yeah, Jessica Biel, God bless, sweat tank tops, Kurt, and tight jeans. It was a beautiful time in 2003. We didn't know how good we had it. We actually watched last weekend, right? We watched part two,
Yeah.
which I'm not a big fan of. I know people love that film. I'm not a huge fan of it, although I didn't mind it as much as I did 20 years ago, but I still gave it a 6 out of 10 in my review. Troy enjoyed it a little bit more than I did, and we watched part three. Hey, Landon, how you doing? Taco Bell's delivering. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. You're going to need an exorcism in the toilet, Landon. Um, get some holy water, Kurt. You're going to need you're gonna need the exorcist there. After eating Taco Bell. It's never a good combo. Ay, ay, ay. But it's cheap. I used to eat Taco Bell too. I don't blame them. We watched part three last weekend as well. I just reviewed that one, and today, before me and Alicia snuck out to eat, started watching part four, The Next Generation. If you've never seen it, it's not streaming anywhere for free except right now. So you got to rent it. But yeah, part four is an experience. We didn't finish. I got to finish it because I want to review it. We got about 3/4 of the way through, and then we had to go for dinner because we had to stream tonight, and Troy likes to watch the movie right before we stream. Howdy, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
Your holy water's twisted. So we started watching part four. We got about 3/4 of the way through, and I got to finish that off because I'm going to do a review for it. I'm going to go through the rest of the franchise. I'm going to review the rest of the installments. I've already reviewed this one in the past. I'm going to review the prequel, Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning, Texas Chainsaw 3D, and the other one.
Hi, Nanny.
Hi, Mom. And I'm going to review the movie Leatherface, which I've never seen. Although that was streaming on Tubi. It's not there now. Unfortunately, Tubi took all the Texas Chainsaws off except for 1 and 2. So I don't know how I'm going to pull that off, but because I don't feel like paying to rent it, but we'll see what happens. I am going to review them all, though. I wasn't planning on it, but we're going to do it. And I'm also going through the Final Destination franchise. We have Final Destination Blood for Final Destination Bloodlines. Hi, Mom. So yeah, excited about that. I like the Final Destination franchise, so I'm excited about the new one. First one we've gotten in quite some time. Yes, I have not seen Leatherface, Brandon. Have you seen it, Brandon? I have not seen that one. I remember when it came out. I just never saw it. I saw the rest of them. That's the only one I haven't seen. Um, yeah, there's movies I haven't seen, Brandon. Trust me, there's more than you would know. They're out there. Also, we did get to go see. You only saw 1 and 2. You got to see part 3, Brandon. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere right now for free. Up, yep, Sage is in the. We have our mascot Sage. She's
Yeah.
laying on the floor right now. She wanted to hang out with us, so I told her as long as she behaves herself, she can hang out with us in the attic. We'll see how long that lasts. Only time will tell on that one. What did we see in the theaters last? Uh,
Summer 41 or
no,
whatever.
we saw Hell of a Summer, but we talked about that last month. I saw The Accountant too
I didn't see it.
a few weeks back. Troy did not go, and I thought it was really well done. If you like the original Accountant, the first one, I thought the second one was just on par and really, really well done. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend The Accountant too. Physical media wise, I know we always talk about that. A couple biggies came out, at least in my world. Deep Blue Sea, which I picked up, it looks great. And I just got Jason Goes to Hell. Yes, Rich, Jason Goes to Hell on 4K from Arrow Video. I'm going to do a video on that once I watch it. I'm excited about watching it. I know it's not the greatest movie. You don't got to tell me. I know it's not the greatest movie, but it's fun as hell and it's gory as hell. If you've never seen it, don't watch the R-rated version because it sucks. Watch the unrated version. You'll be glad you did because it's carnage candy all day, every day. You're going to have to watch that one. You don't have to see the rest of the franchise to watch that one and enjoy it. It's dumb as hell. It makes no sense in the rest of the franchise, but it's fun and gory. And the ending is badass, and It set up a Freddy versus Jason 10 years before we even saw that movie. Um, so, and Kane Hodder played Freddy in that scene. Kurt Kane Hodder got to play. Yeah, I knew you'd say no comment, Rich. Kane Hodder got to play Jason Voorhees 4 times. He got to play Freddy because that was him in the glove and the arm that pulled Jason's mask down to hell. And he got to play Leatherface in that teaser trailer, Brandon, that I posted on the Discord page. That's Kane Hodder in the Leatherface getup. So he got to play 3 horror icons at some point in his career. That's pretty cool. Not too many people get to say that, but Kane Hodder can say that for sure. Any other horror movie? I want to see Clown in a Cornfield. It came out today. Yep, Hodder with the Holy Trinity. Um, yeah, Kane was the only one to play Freddy and Jason. Yep. Clown in a Cornfield dropped today in theaters. I want to see it, but we're not going to have time this weekend. Tomorrow night we're going. Troy's a soccer game tomorrow afternoon, and tomorrow night we're going to see Everclear. They're playing at a baseball stadium, literally 15 minutes from our house. So we're going to a concert tomorrow night, and Sunday's Mother's Day. So next weekend we're going to go see Final Destination Bloodlines on Friday and Clown in a Cornfield on Sunday. So we're going to make it a double whammy next weekend. And what the hell? We'll do it up, and I'll have a review out of the theater for that with me and Troy for Final Destination and for Clown in the Cornfield. I want to check that out. I'm always up for a killer clown movie, and this is just the latest. It's based on a novel series, which I didn't even know about until my one friend on TikTok is a big fan of them, and I didn't know there was books written on them, but there's a book series on Clown in the Cornfield. Maybe I'll check those out at some point if I get back into reading, which I do miss doing. Troy hates reading, so he doesn't want to read. But all right, let's get into Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. I know Brandon, you just watched it the other 90s. Today was the first time I rewatched it since the 90s. It's not a
Yeah.
very good film. It's a wild movie. I mean, you got Matthew McConaughey, and it's the best part of the movie because he gives a great, insane performance. But other than him, I mean, Renee Zellweger's in it. I've never been a big fan of hers, but she's okay. But Matthew McConaughey is the only reason to watch it. He's really awesome as a psychopath, but the rest of the movie kind of sucks. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise had been dead for a long time, or at least dormant since the mid 90s. So New Line Cinema, who did part 3 back in 1990, came back to release this one and Texas Chainsaw the Beginning, which would be the next movie, which was a prequel, which is actually pretty good if you've never seen it. Um, what movie? We're talking about Texas Chainsaw 2003, not Kurt. When was the last time you watched it? If you've never seen the prequel, Texas Chainsaw the Beginning, which takes place before this movie, it's pretty good. It's pretty gory. It's pretty hardcore. Oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Kurt, the beginning. Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger are in that film, and this was the first Platinum Dunes remake. Landon. Well, I know you were commenting on Jessica Biel's pants and her tight tank top, Rich. You were texting me. Yes, this was their first remake, Brandon, and after this, the floodgates open because you had the Amityville Horror, the Hitcher remake, which I don't really like because it's basically shot for shot of the original, and you can't outdo the original remake, Brandon, right? Um, And then they did like Friday the 13th, which I do like the Friday the 13th remake a lot. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and what the hell else did they do? Oh, that was their last remake, right? Did they do any remakes after that? But they did a bunch of remakes after that. The Amityville Horror remake's not bad. It's short, to the point. I think Ryan Reynolds is pretty good in it, and he gets you out. I don't mind that remake because the original to me is not a classic. It's okay. I like that movie, but it's not a class. I don't consider it a holy grail of horror. So the remake doesn't. This was considered more offensive at the time when they announced it. I remember there was some heat on the movie because horror fans were mad. You want to let her out, but she wants to go down and check on mommy. I remember when they announced this one, people were a little pissed. Like horror fans were a little pissed. They were a little salty about it. How could you remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? The same thing happened when Rob Zombie remade Halloween. How could you remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I remember, it was all over Fangoria. I was a Fangoria subscriber. But I remember, horror fans were a little salty about it. I remember the initial teaser trailer, which was directed by Michael Bay, where you don't see anything. You just hear the noise of the black screen. You hear the door slamming shut, a girl screaming, and then you hear the chainsaw revving. That was all shot by Michael Bay. And that was just a teaser to get people excited for the movie, which it did. It piqued my interest because I was like, how are they going to redo the original Texas Chainsaw? And the good thing about this movie is they don't try to match it because the tone of the original would have been hard to replicate, especially in 2003 under the circumstances in which this film was made. The original was made in the 70s on a very low budget in 16 millimeter, and there was no way they were going to make this on 16 millimeter or try to give it the same feel. And they didn't even try, which was probably one of the pluses of this movie. But let's get into this one. Jessica, Neil, and Al. Yeah, the Jessicas. Yep, I remember that time, Kurt. And now they're all a little older. And Jessica Biel hasn't been in anything in a long time. She kind of went away because she had kids, and I think she just was focused on being a mother. But anyway, let's get into this movie, and I'm going to throw it to Troy and let him talk about what he liked about this movie, and let him talk about the journey he's been on with the Texas Chainsaw. Let him talk about that a little bit. Now, Texas Chainsaw 2003 came out in 2003, October 17th of 2003. It's rated R. It's an hour and 38 minutes long. Had a budget of $9.5 million, which is a super reasonable budget even back then. And upon release, it made $80 million in America and $107 worldwide. This was hugely successful. In this film, we got Jessica Biel as Aaron. We got Eric Balfour as Kemper. They are girlfriend and boyfriend. Michael Vogel plays Andy, one of their friends. Jonathan Tucker plays Morgan. Another one of their friends are on their way to a Leonard Skinner concert in Dallas. The great R. Lee Ermey plays Sheriff Hoyt, although after 5 minutes of listening to this asshole talk, you know he's no cop, right? Troy even pointed out, He's like, why are they listening to this dickhead? He's not a cop. But it's R. Lee Ermey, and he carries a certain kind of presence, so you just do whatever he wants, I guess. And Andrew Byronowski plays Thomas Hewitt, or Leatherface. And me and Brandon were talking about him the other night on Discord because he was Latimer in The Program in 1993, which I absolutely love that movie, that football classic. I remember seeing that in the theaters. Brandon, I got to see that movie before they took out that scene with them laying in the middle of the road. They pulled that scene like a week later because those college kids did that dumbass stunt trying to recreate it, and one of them got killed. But I got to see the original version of that before they cut it. And I don't know if they'll ever release that scene again. I don't even know if it's on YouTube, that scene where they lay down in the middle of the road for a rush. Oh, yeah. When he puts the gun in the holster, you know damn well he's not a cop. It was his gun. She stole it from him. There's so many signs that he's not a real cop, and these kids just go along with it. We'll get into that. We'll get to that part. That's one part where I'm like, are you goddamn nuts? Like, this guy is obviously not a cop. He's out of his mind. Yeah, I got to see the original cut. I got to see it opening weekend before they cut that scene out, Brandon. I was lucky. I got to see it. I remember right after that, the news story about those kids doing it, and one of them got killed, or I don't remember how that happened. I have to look it up. But then they recut the movie and cut that scene out. And I have it on DVD, and that scene's not in it. But I got to see it originally in the theaters before they yanked it. So I guess I'm kind of lucky in that. But I remember him in that movie as Latimer. He was awesome, and he was also in Batman Returns as Max Schreck's kid, and he was in Pearl Harbor for Michael Bay. That's how he got this film, actually. Little trivia up front. Andrew Bryanowski, when he heard Michael Bay's company, because Michael Bay owns Platinum Dunes, that was his company, still is. Um, he knew Michael Bay, and he wanted to play Leatherface, so he approached Michael Bay and asked if he could play Leatherface, and he gave him the role. So that's how he ended up getting and playing Leatherface, and he definitely is the biggest and bulkiest Leatherface we've ever had. Because he is I met him at a horror convention in East Rutherford at a Fangoria horror convention. He is a big dude in real life. Nice guy, super nice guy. Actually wanted to go drink beers with us after we stood there talking to him for about 10, 15 minutes. Really super nice guy. He wanted to hang out afterwards at the hotel bar, but we couldn't. We had to drive back. We were only there for the day. But he was a real super nice guy, but he was a huge dude. Now, this Texas Chainsaw opens up with the same narrator. John Larroquette came back to narrate the beginning of this film as he did the original film, which was pretty cool of him to do that, considering he had gone on to other things, and he was a pretty notable actor by that point, but he held no ill will towards it, so he came back and did the narration. And this one, I actually kind of like how this opens up with the black and white police footage, or the news footage, and then the police footage of the police officer going through the crime scene. I like that opening. It's a good different way to open it compared to the original film. So I like that aspect of it. And then we're introduced to our kids, or late teens, early 20s. They're on their way to a Leonard Skinner concert in a Dodge van this time. I think the original they were in a VW van, True Hippies. They pick up a hitchhiker. This hitchhiker is a little different than the hitchhiker in the first one, because this hitchhiker saw some shit. She went through some shit, as we find out from little clues that her whole family was murdered and she got away. And when she sees where they're driving, she decides to pull a gun out and blow a big hole in the back of her head. And I love that camera shot. Troy even said that was pretty cool, where it starts on our crew of kids that are going to be going through hell over the next 90 minutes, and it pulls back through her head. And on the making of documentary for this film, I remember watching it way back when I had the DVD. They show how they pulled that off, and it was done for real, obviously. Well, I don't want to say, Brandon. YouTube doesn't like that word, but I did notice something on this rewatch that I don't think I've ever noticed. When it keeps cutting, the camera goes back to her, the hitchhiker, which is the same girl from Hostel 2, by the way, that gets away at the end. She was a survivor on Hostel 2. Lauren German's the actress's name. So she went on to do Hostel 2 a couple years after this. If you look at her when she's sitting there in the back seat, I never noticed this before, and I don't know why, but if you look at her, she has blood on the inner part of her thighs. You can only see it briefly before she pulls the gun out.
You just noticed that?
I'd never noticed that before, and I've seen this movie probably at least 10 times. I never noticed that. But if you look, there is blood. It's light, but you can see it. There's blood on the inner part of her thighs before she pulls the gun out. And that's a question I always ask Brandon. Where was she hiding the gun? And there's only one place she could have been hiding the gun, and I don't even want to think about that. But she pulls the gun out, offs herself, and then we're into some shit. Because they call for the sheriff, they pull over, and the sheriff that shows up is Arlie Ermey. And Troy, after about 2 minutes not even in 2 minutes, after about 30 seconds of him talking, Troy's like, there's no way he's a cop. And I had to keep my mouth shut. And but he already knew he's not a cop. This guy's full of shit. This guy's insane. Clearly, he's not right. Or you're in boot camp in the Marines in Full Metal Jacket. Either one. It could have been either one. He does sniff it too, because he does. Before he even puts it back in his holster, he sniffs it, because he asks, "Where did she get this?" or "Where did this come from?" Well, actually, I thought on Arlie Ermey's part that was a nice touch, Kurt. That was a nice little subtle touch. But he does sniff the barrel of the gun. I guess he knew where she had it hit, Kurt. He must have known. Because he even makes a comment about how he used to like wrapping these little honeys up because he could cop a feel. And he does cop a feel as he says that, if you pay attention. You can see him copping a feel, and it's like, Jesus Christ, they just let Arlie Ermey go for it. They just let him go for it. Just do whatever you want. I mean, that's what most people did when he was on screen. But And it always usually worked out. I do like him as Sheriff Hoyt. It adds a little bit different flavor to this version of Texas Chainsaw because obviously there's a lot more characters in this one than there's in the original film. And yep, Arlie Army was awesome. Rest in peace, sir. You were a legend, and he was in our armed forces, and he was a drill instructor for real. That's why he got the job for Full Metal Jacket because he was a real life drill instructor, and he was awesome in that movie. And he was always, I loved him in Seven. I always loved Arlie Army whenever he showed up. Uh, so anyway, we get some recreated scenes where Jessica Biel and her boyfriend go off and find the house. It's a different house. Troy said this house might be creepier, and it is a creepy looking house. And it was a real house they found, just like in the original film. It was a house in Texas. It still stands to this day. You can visit it if you want. They shot this in and around Austin, outside of Austin, Texas. And we get that scene just done in a different way where Kemper is on the floor looking at something, and Leatherface comes up behind him and cracks him over the head with the mallet. Oh yeah, Full Metal Jacket. Stanley Kubrick just let him rip. He wrote his own dialogue. He did his own dialogue. He said he just took from what he used to say when he trained Marines. Kurt, that's what he said. He goes, I just use what I used to say in real life. I just use the same thing. And that's when the movie gets real. You know, we get the door slammed shut just like the original film. And then pretty much it's just we're off. You know, there's chasing, there's screaming, there's people losing limbs, which Troy thought was pretty cool. Yeah, I like that too, Brandon. It's just in the field by itself, just standing there, ominous, like looming over the surrounding landscape. And I love the night shot, and it makes no sense why it's backlit, but it looks cool as hell in the movie when you just see the silhouette of the house and it's backlit at night. I love that shot. I said to Troy, they showed it like 2 or 3 times once the sun goes down. I love that shot. Again, it makes no sense to light source, but it just looks cool, so I can just go with it. I just think it's a badass shot. And I do like Andrew Bynarowski as Leatherface. I think he's a big and imposing Leatherface. I like the look on him. He's definitely vicious, especially when he cut that kid's leg off at the knee, and then it hangs him on the hook, and then puts the salt and wraps his leg in meat packing paper. That was a nice touch. I remember seeing this in the theaters, and this is 2003, and we just went through the 90s where it wasn't very gory because the MPAA. I mean, Scream had blood in it, but this was probably, I'm sure I could think of a gorier movie, but at the time, this was pushing the envelope a little bit, this movie. I know it sounds crazy now with the shit we've gotten, like the Terrifier movies and the Violent Nature, stuff like that. But at the time when this came out, this was kind of pushing the envelope. And I remember it was a packed theater, Friday night, opening night, and I remember girls going absolutely batshit crazy when he cut that guy's knee off, or leg off the knee. And they were just like disgusted by it. Now, me, a horror veteran, it didn't bother me. I thought it was cool, but you know, this was pretty hardcore for 2003. And it's funny because we're only 22 years away from that point, but at the time, I think people forget the 80s were pretty glorious, but the MPAA started cracking down in the late 80s on gore and violence in movies. I saw your review, Brandon. Yeah, I used to not mind that scene, but after reading your review and watching it tonight, I'm like, it does look a little goofy. But at the time, people forget because the 90s was kind of tame. Yeah, Jason Goes to Hell was gory as hell, but you had to watch the unrated cut for that. The R-rated cut was very tame compared to the unrated cut. The 90s was a very tame time because of the MPAA. This movie really did start bringing about, and then Saw, Hostel, Cabin Fever, those type films, House of a Thousand Corpses, really ushered in the more hard-edged, hardcore R-rated horror films. Trying to explain that to a kid now, like we watched Texas 3, the unrated cut, and Troy's like, this still isn't that gory. And I'm like, you don't understand at the time when that movie came out, the MPAA had a hard-on for the Texas Chainsaw series. So, I mean, part 2, Hooper convinced Cannon to release that unrated, the boy bands. Hooper convinced Cannon to release part 2 unrated because the MPAA was going to give him an X and he couldn't see a point where he could cut anything out. But Troy was like, we're watching part 3, and he liked it enough, but he's like, this should have been gorier if it's unrated. I'm like, you don't understand the climate of the time. I mean, at the time, the unrated cut was a gift when we got that because the MPA was cutting everything. Everything had to be cut. So it's kind of funny now looking back on it because we have it so good now with things like Terrifier and A Violent Nature. Everything's gorier, bigger. I mean, they're not afraid to throw the blood around anymore, and the MPA lets them get away with it. Even Hard Eyes, the slasher film that came out in February, gets pretty gory at times. You know, back in the early 90s, you wouldn't have got away with that shit. There's no way. They would have made you cut it down. And this really did usher in what they called torture porn. Although I don't agree with that term. It was just gore. Like they were allowed to push the envelope further. That's what it was. And this what ushered in the Rob Zombie years, the Eli Roth years. I mean, give it or if you like it or not, it doesn't matter at the time. I mean, this really did help usher in that go for broke, go more hard edge R-rated horror film. And it's kind of hard to explain to him because he's only 13 because it's a cornucopia of gore now, but back then it wasn't that way. That's my end of rant on the 90s and how it screwed up horror films. But there was some gold in the 90s. We can't piss on the 90s all the time. I know like people like to shit on the 90s for horror, but there are some awesome horror films from the 90s. Demon Knight, which is badass. In the Mouth of Madness. Exorcist 3. New Nightmare. There's some gold in there. Scream, obviously. The 90s wasn't all for nothing. Because we got Scream. We got I Know You Did Last Summer. Urban Legend. I like those movies. So, you know, 90s gets a lot of shit, but there is some gold in there. You just got to search for it. Anyway, back to the movie. We see Leatherface cutting somebody's face off, which Brandon alluded to. Kemper's face, which he wears to attack the girls in the van. And we get back to the house for some... We don't get a dinner scene, which I'm glad... Even back then, I was glad they didn't try to recreate the dinner scene. You're not going to be able to recreate that. And I think they did a smart thing not trying to recreate that madness and that crazy ass shit that goes on seen in the original film. It would have been hard to capture the tone of that at the time they made this. So I'm glad they didn't even try. And then we get some cat and mouse stuff. Yes, Brandon, I love that stuff. And if you like that, you got to watch part 3, Brandon. If you like that stuff, you got to watch part 3. Right in the beginning of the film, the tone, right there. And then we get our final girl, which is Erin, which we knew at the time. We knew because it was Jessica Biel. She was the biggest actress in the film, as part of the kids anyway. And then she cuts Leatherface's arm off in the meatpacking plant with that meat cleaver. And then she runs over Sheriff Hoyt, steals the baby that she knows wasn't theirs, and we get that ending narration we get the scene with the cops that get attacked, and the ending narration, that's the end of the movie. And then a couple years later, we got the prequel. So Troy, you've been going through down the Texas Chainsaw rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with part 2, and we'll get into this one. What did you think of part 2, since you didn't do a review on it, obviously?
The screen is way too small.
Okay, to give him some... I got to set this up a little bit since he's going to start going right in on just the presentation. I have the old MGM release DVD of Texas Chainsaw Part 2. So it's not... The way... The presentation on the disc is not the greatest, obviously. It's from way back from like the late 90s. It was released. So the presentation wasn't the greatest. So as soon as it came on, this 13-year-old who's used to 4K TVs and everything looking amazing was bitching about the picture quality. I'm like, you gotta just stay in
I'm
it.
not. It's not the picture quality.
Just say what you like about the movie. Let's not complain.
With the DVD.
Let's not get an argument over that. Just talk about the movie. What did you like about the movie?
Probably when... I think this is part 2, when the person gets their hands nailed to the chair.
It's part 3.
Oh, okay.
Part 2 is when they're under that amusement park.
Oh, so
the tunnels.
I like everything about the tunnels. It's like...
It is a cool set.
Yeah,
yes.
it's a cool set.
Yes.
Also, I didn't like our one character, the new one.
Oh, Chop Top?
Not like
he feels the same way about Chop Top as I did 20 years ago. He grew on me, and I love Bill Moseley, but Chop Top 20 years ago, I loathed that character, and I know a lot of horror fans love that character, but I rather his character Otis from House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects than I do Chop Top. But what would you give Texas 2?
I think a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. All right, so let's get on to part 3. Brandon's never seen part 3. Kurt, have you ever seen part 3? Rich, I know you have because we watched it together many times when I lived in Tamaqua. What did you think of part 3?
It was pretty good. It wasn't, as for an unrated version, it was not gory.
I know. You got to understand the time. But overall, what'd you think?
It's pretty good.
It's more of a, it went back to basics, more of a straight-laced horror film than the
Yeah.
second one, because the second one's kind of...
Yeah. I like the chainsaw.
Oh, yeah, he loves the chainsaw. They give him, for you people who haven't seen it, which it's not really a spoiler, doesn't really give anything away. During the film, Leatherface is given this chrome big-ass chainsaw, and across the blade it's written, "The Saw His Family." It looks badass. And that's what he uses the rest of the movie to kill some folks. What would you give part 3?
7.5 out of 10.
7.5, okay. Okay, so what would you say about this one, now that we've just finished watching it? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
This one's better than all the other ones.
Except for the original.
Debatable.
What did you like about this one?
It was gory.
Okay, what else did you like about it, though? There's got to be more than just gore.
I like the scene in the house. It's like ominous and not expecting that.
Yeah, Troy enjoyed all the house stuff in this one. I think he liked this house better. It is a very imposing house. I will give him that. It was an awesome location they found to utilize for this film. What did you think about the way Leatherface looked and acted in this film?
I liked how he's smarter.
Yeah, Troy picked up on that right away. Where this Leatherface, where in the original film, Gunnar Hansen did play up at moments the childlike mental disability angle more, where in this one he seems smarter and more cunning than the other versions of this of Leatherface. It seemed like they toned that down a little bit, and he was more capable of thinking things through. Not an Einstein, obviously, but you could see where he was definitely more, in tune of what he had to do to accomplish his goal. So, what do you think about the ending?
It's not what I was expecting.
You didn't expect him to get his arm cut off?
I also didn't like how there were so many people in on it.
That big of a family?
Yeah, I didn't like that. I like where it's 3 or 4. That's really it. I can't do.
They did go way huge on the fan, or who's involved with this and knows what's going on. That's a lot of people to keep quiet. I mean, but they were all in on it, and they seem to be okay. And in the prequel, I don't know, I'm not going to give it away. We got to watch the prequel. But what didn't you like about it? Besides that, is there anything else you didn't like about it? Besides there's too many characters involved with the family?
No.
No? You liked it pretty much? Well, I'll ask you for your rating at the end. Let me talk about it a little bit. My favorite... What was your favorite kill? I got to ask that. What's your favorite kill? Or what was your favorite... Not just kill. What was your favorite gore gag?
Probably when the guy gets his leg cut off and he puts the salt on his...
That is a pretty cool, demented scene, for sure. I like that scene, too. Where would you rank this Leatherface compared to the other ones?
His mask looks a lot better than the other ones. And he's also bigger, obviously.
Well, yeah. Andrew Wojnarowski's just a bigger dude. And he put weight on to play this role. Is he your favorite, or do you think he's your favorite? Okay. All right. Hey. Honest opinions here. My favorite gore gag, I'd have to go with the leg getting cut off. That whole scene with him prepping him, putting him on the hook, prepping his leg with the salt, and then wrapping it in meat wrapping paper. I always like that scene. It's definitely one that makes people squirm that aren't used to horror movies. You can always tell somebody that's not used to horror when they see that scene and they're squirming in their seats. I like Arlie Ermey's character. I think he's a terrific addition. And they probably just let him cook. They probably didn't even give him a script. They probably just put him in, told him what he had to do, where he had to walk, where he had to sit, and just told him to frickin' let it rip. I'm sure it's what they did because only Arlie Ermey could come up with some of those goddamn lines. And I like him involved. Thinking, I know they explain in the prequel. They explain how he came about to be what he is. They give a little more insight, backstory into the family. So if you've never seen it, I recommend it. I think it's pretty decent prequel as far as prequel goes. And it's gory as hell too. It's even gorier than this version. Jessica Biel makes a good final girl. I mean, obviously she has the attributes, and she's a decent actress. She always was. She was coming off of Seventh Heaven at the time, and this is around the time they made the dumpster fire Blade Trinity. She was in that, and then she did some other films, and then she kind of went away for a while. But I think she's fine. I think the cast is good for the most part. They're all good here. I agree with Troy. There's too many people involved with the family in this one. It's like 3 expanded it to about as far as I'd want it to go. This one, there's even more people involved, and I agree. I don't like that aspect. There's just way too many people involved with this. But at the same token, I could see this is a generational farm, a generational house, like it was handed down. This family probably lived in that house since it was built in like the 1800s, and it was just passed on to these folks, and they're still living there, and some of them moved into a trailer. Maybe that's what it is.
I just thought of this. I'm surprised in all of the ones I've seen so far, we haven't got a scene like in Thanksgiving where they cook someone alive. Since they're cannibals,
like
I'm surprised.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, they don't. That was always the thing about Texas Chainsaw. I mean, in the second one, they played up because they had the whole room filled with body parts. Remember that? Yeah. And they were grinding meat for the chili and that the cook
I'm talking about like actually.
No, I know. I don't think they ever wanted to push it that far. I don't know why they never showed them cooking actually people. That's a good point. Out of all the films, although I never saw Leatherface, they never show that. They allude to it, but they never show it. So that is a good point. They never show a cooking scene or anything like that.
The closest thing is in part 1 where you see the meat hanging over the fire.
In the gas station. And then part 2 you have that whole room filled with body parts. But part 3 they don't really show it.
Yeah.
But that was a good astute point, man. You're right. They never do show a scene like that in any of the films. Like I said, the only one I haven't seen is Leatherface. So after I watch that one, I can tell you if they ever show one. But I doubt they do if they didn't do through all of them. After we watch it. Okay. Look, this was made in 2002, 2003. They had more technology. Better equipment, obviously, than Tobe Hooper had in the original. I agree with Brandon, though. I like the look of the original better. I like that 16mm documentary style, looks like it's happening kind of feel. But I will give them credit. They didn't try to match that style. They didn't try to ape that style. Matter of fact, Daniel Pearl, who was the cinematographer on the original 1974 film, did the cinematography on this film. And when Marcus Nispel, who directed this film and directed the Friday the 13th remake in 2009, they worked together on music videos and commercials. And Marcus Nispel was approached by Michael Bay about directing this film. And Daniel Pearl said he was quoted as saying for years he would never do another Texas Chainsaw movie. But he decided to do it. And he told Marcus, you just will not try to match the original. We can't match that tone. And I think that was the smart thing. They do go hard on the gore. It's obviously a gorier film, but they didn't try to match the feel of the original, which I don't think they ever in 2003 they ever would have been able to reach, especially in a studio film, because this was made by New Line Cinema. So at the end of the day, you shoot the gore that's on screen here and some of the harshness, and you put it on 16 millimeter and give it that grimy grindhouse feel. They might not have been able to get away with what they got away with in this film under those circumstances, just because of the feel of the film. I don't know that. I'm just guessing. But I'm glad they didn't even try to match it. Just like I'm glad they didn't have a dinner scene in this movie. They weren't going to be able to top that scene, so don't try. Just do something different. So I think they were smart with that. I do like some of the lighting choices. Now, Brandon, I know what you said about it's like a brownish tone to it, and I agree with you. I think what they were trying to do is they gave it a more polished look, but they were kind of desaturating the image. In some scenes, you can see color and that, but some scenes look very desaturated. Now, I don't love the look in through the whole movie, but in some points, it's a really good-looking movie. At certain points, there's some really beautiful shots they pull off here. So overall, I think on a production scale, it's pretty well managed by the team. And so on that respect, I got to give them props. I think they did a pretty good job considering they were making a remake to a seminal classic that a lot of horror fans love. So I got to give them props for that. Now, they did shoot this in Texas, like I said, outside of Austin. This was the first movie remake produced by Platinum Dunes. This is Michael Bay's company. New Line Cinema came back to release this one and Texas Chainsaw the beginning. And that's all I have trivia-wise. But I like Andrew Bynasky as Leatherface. I think he's a really good Leatherface. Definitely in my top 3, which would be Gunnar Hansen, Arlie Mihailov from Part 3, and him. I think he's really, really good. And he's just as good in the prequel. So yet again, I got to throw it out there. If you've never seen the prequel, check it out. It's pretty damn good, even though you know. The problem with prequels are you pretty much know what's going to happen. And it's answering questions nobody's asking. But I think they did a really nice job with the prequel and making a really, really gory and violent slasher film with characters that they established in this film. So I highly recommend that film. But at the end of the day, I like this remake. I don't like it as much as the original film. But I do like it. And we're going to rate it right now. Troy, what would you give the Texas Chainsaw 2003 out of 10?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay. I'm going to give Texas Chainsaw 2003 a 7.5 out of 10. I do like this movie. So 7.5 out of 10 is not a bad score. Just Troy liked it more than I did. What would you give it out there out of 10, out of 5 stars? Brandon, I know you gave it a 2.5 stars out of 5. I think, this did kick off a lot of remakes, which some people don't like. But we did get some good ones in there. I think the Amityville Horror remake was pretty good. The Friday 13th 2009, I think, was a really good remake sequel. It's more of a sequel than really a remake if you think about it. And it's a shame we never got a sequel to that film. I just rewatched it on 4K, by the way, with my good buddy Dale_A. The Hitcher remakes, I don't like that movie. Rich gave it an 8 out of 10. Alrighty, all right. Go back and watch Part 4, Rich, with Matthew McConaughey. Best part of that movie, man. 8.25 out of 10 just because I can't decide between 8. Hey, Kurt, that's all right. You don't have to decide. Just pick one. It's fine, man. It's all good. Friday 13th remake. Yeah, the Friday 13th remake, I like that one more than I like this remake. I think that's a really good remake. It got so much shit, Brandon. Pisses me off. We could have got a sequel to that, and it made a lot of money, but the reaction from the fans was so harsh. And I'm like, watching that movie now, it gives you everything you want in a Friday 13th movie. We didn't know how good we had it, Brandon. We did not know how good we had it. We could have had a couple movies based off of that movie and had Derek Mears playing Jason, which I think he was one of the best Jasons we ever had, and we all fucked it up. Well, I didn't fuck it up, but a lot of us fucked it up by complaining like a bunch of bitches. But, yeah, so now, next month, we're going to do a Horror Talk Live. We're going to try to do one a month here. And I was going to do a different movie but I decided to pull an audible because it's my pick, and we're on to this entry in Troy's journey in this franchise entry. And Brandon, you know what's coming because you and I discussed this on Discord one night. Since summer is upon us, it's May going into June, and our next episode will be in June. Let's go back to summer camp, baby. And we're going to do this bad boy right here, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. And you may ask yourself, why are we skipping to 4? We only did 1. Because it's our show and we're going to do it, man. But no, Troy has seen 1 through 3. That's the next up on his list. And I said to him, I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter for our next episode. That's going to be my pick. So that's going to be the next episode. So get your copies out, Rich, Kurt, Brandon, Mom, Dad. I don't know if you even have it. And anybody else that's out there. And get your Friday the 13th, Part 4 out. And we're going to go back to Crystal Lake, baby. And we're going to watch Corey Feldman kick some ass. Troy doesn't know what that means, but he's about to learn. And we're going to see some cool-ass dance moves. Crispin Glover, baby. Did you know he was actually dancing to AC/DC Back in Black in that scene, but they couldn't use the song because they couldn't afford it, so they went with the song that's on there? True story, man. True story. Yeah, so we're gonna get to see some badass dance moves and Corey Feldman kicking some ass. And we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna go back to Camp Crystal Lake. We're gonna have some TNA. Some awesome kills provided by the great Tom Savini, one of my favorite Jason Voorheeses in that movie, played by Ted White and directed by Joseph Zito, which I think he did a hell of a good job with it. And we're going to have some fun, man. But yeah, that wraps up Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Thank you all for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to get out of here. Troy's going to hop online and play games online with his friends. I'm going to go downstairs and spend some time with Alicia. And I'll probably have a dog all over me because she's pissed that I've ignored her for a little bit. Yes, dancing. That's right. Crystal Lake's only 2 hours away from Rich and Kurt. You can go visit, man. They're having a screening and a sleepover coming up where you can sleep at the camp, Rich. I actually follow the Blairstown Diner. These people own it and run it. It's the same diner that's in Part 1, Rich. It's right around that same area, Blairstown, New Jersey. It looks really good. I wouldn't mind making a pilgrimage out there myself. But I hope you all have a great night. Have a great weekend. Happy. Yeah, I heard it's expensive as fuck, Kurt. That's the only problem. But I hope all the mothers out there have a very happy Mother's Day. Yous are the best. And I hope you have a great day. And everybody treats you the way you should be treated. But yeah, have a great weekend. Take care of each other. And we will see you. I will announce next month's episode towards the beginning of June. And we'll have some fun. Until next time, folks. Bye. Good job. I think we did pretty good.
Mm-hmm.